What if I told you that to truly become strong, you must learn to walk alone? That sounds brutal, doesn't it? Because everything around you says the opposite. Society whispers that solitude is failure, that being alone means no one wants you, that silence is something to escape, not embrace. We're told to stay connected, to keep talking, posting, performing. We chase attention as if it were oxygen. Yet deep inside, many of us are suffocating. We live surrounded by people but feel unseen. We collect friends online but lose connection with ourselves. We seek approval from strangers yet forget what our own voice sounds like in the silence. Here's the paradox. Every great transformation in human history, every masterpiece, every revolution, every act of courage began with someone who dared to stand alone. Marcus Aurelius ruled millions, yet he found wisdom not in the noise of the court, but in the stillness of his own mind. He wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." Think about that. A man with absolute power realized that the greatest empire he would ever rule was his own mind. So let me ask you, when was the last time you truly sat alone with your thoughts? No phone, no music, just you. Most people can't last 5 minutes, because in the silence, there are no distractions left, only truth. And truth can be terrifying. But here's the secret. Once you learn to face that truth, it becomes your greatest weapon. In this video, we'll uncover the hidden strength behind solitude, how the world's most resilient minds used isolation not to escape life, but to master it. By the end, you'll see that walking alone isn't the end of connection. It's where real connection begins. Stay until the end. Because there's one misconception about solitude that keeps millions trapped in weakness. And once you see through it, you'll never fear being alone again. Let's take a step back and look at the world we live in. A world that celebrates constant noise, notifications, messages, meetings, yet calls silence awkward. A culture that tells you to be available every second of the day, as if your worth depends on how fast you reply to someone else's needs. We call this progress. But the truth, it's dependence dressed as connection. We've built a civilization addicted to validation. People wake up not to reflect, but to check who noticed them overnight. We crave acknowledgement because somewhere we've forgotten how to validate ourselves. That's why Stoicism matters more today than ever before. It's not a set of cold, ancient rules written by a motionless man. It's a living art of balance, forged in a world just as chaotic as ours. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they all lived through political corruption, war, betrayal, and uncertainty. Yet they found peace not by controlling the world, but by mastering themselves. To be a Stoic warrior in the modern world means exactly that. To remain steady when everyone else panics. To keep clarity when everyone else reacts. To lead yourself when no one else will. And that's what this journey is about. In this episode, you learn 7 timeless principles that transform solitude from something to fear into something to revere. Embrace sacred solitude, finding wisdom in stillness. Opinion, immunity, breaking free from others' approval, the strength of self-reliance, building emotional independence. Failure as a private university, learning through reflection, not regret, building your inner fortress, creating peace no one can invade, the courage to disappoint others, staying true when others can't understand, victory through self-mastery, conquering the only enemy that truly matters, yourself. Each principle builds on the last, is staircase of discipline and clarity leading toward freedom. And freedom, in Stoic terms, doesn't mean isolation. It means sovereignty. As you listen, keep this question in your mind. Where in my life have I mistaken comfort for peace? Because comfort numbs you, but peace strengthens you. Comfort keeps you safe, but peace keeps you centered. This isn't a motivational speech. It's a call to return to the fundamentals of your own power. By the time you finish, you won't just understand Stoicism. You'll see yourself differently. You'll feel that inner stillness, the kind no one can touch, no matter what chaos surrounds you. Because walking alone isn't loneliness, it's leadership, and those who learn to walk alone become the ones the world follows when everything else falls apart. Most people fear solitude because they've never truly met themselves. They fill every quiet moment with noise, scrolling, music, podcasts, endless conversation, anything to avoid silence. Because silence exposes the one voice they can't escape, their own. We live in a generation allergic to stillness. People panic when there's nothing left to distract them. They call it boredom, but it's really fear. Fear of facing the emptiness they've been covering up with stimulation. But here's the truth the Stoics understood long ago. Solitude is not emptiness. It's a mirror. And what you see in that mirror determines the quality of your entire life. When Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations, he wasn't performing for the world. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. Those pages were private conversations between his soul and his conscience. In those quiet moments, he found clarity, purpose, and the strength to rule an empire without losing himself. Seneca understood this too. Exiled, stripped of power, cut off from the noise of society, he discovered wisdom. He wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." What looked like punishment was actually transformation. His isolation became his initiation. That's why the Stoic warrior treats solitude not as exile but as training. It's the sacred space where you sharpen the mind, test the spirit, and rebuild the soul. Let's be honest. Modern life doesn't encourage this. We're addicted to constant input. We wake up to screens, eat with screens, and fall asleep under their blue light. Even our moments of rest are filled with noise. We've lost the ability to be still, and in losing that, we've lost access to our own wisdom. But solitude, when embraced consciously, changes everything. Because in solitude, the noise fades, and truth finally speaks. It's in silence that you begin to hear the subtle language of your own thoughts, the unfiltered dialogue between who you are and who you could become. You start noticing patterns, your fears, your insecurities, your true desires. And when you see them clearly, you gain the power to change them. This is the first battlefield of the Stoic warrior, not against others, but against distraction. You can't build strength in chaos. You build it in calm. Think of it like this. A warrior doesn't sharpen his sword in the middle of battle. He sharpens it alone, in the quiet, before the storm. Solitude is that preparation. It's where you align your values, strengthen your principles, and make peace with your own company. If the idea of being alone makes you restless, that's a sign you need it. Because your discomfort is not a punishment. It's a signal that your inner world has been neglected. So here's how to begin. Start small. 5 minutes of intentional solitude each morning. No phone, no agenda, no distractions. Just breathe. Notice your thoughts without judgment. Don't fight them. Observe them the way Marcus Aurelius observed his own mind before facing the world. Then extend that practice. Take a walk without music. Eat a meal in silence. Travel alone once in a while. Not to escape, but to listen. You'll begin to notice something unexpected. Solitude isn't empty. It's full of creativity, full of peace, full of ideas that couldn't reach you before because your mind was too crowded to hear them. And in that space, something powerful happens. You stop running from yourself. You start remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. That's what sacred solitude gives you. Not loneliness, but liberation. Freedom from the exhausting game of seeking validation. Freedom from performing for approval. Freedom from the illusion that you need constant company to feel complete. Because once you can stand alone, every connection becomes a choice, not a crutch. You no longer need others to fill your emptiness. You meet them from a place of fullness. The Stoic warrior knows that everyone else is fighting for external territory, wealth, reputation, followers, but the real battle, the only one that determines who you truly are, happens when you're completely alone with your soul. So here's your first challenge. Schedule time every day for a sacred solitude. Protect it like your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it does. 5 minutes will become 15. 15 will become an hour. And one day, you'll realize something incredible. You don't fear solitude anymore. You crave it, not because you're escaping the world, but because you finally built a world within yourself that's worth coming home to. That's the first step on the path of the Stoic warrior. You walk alone, not in darkness, but toward the light that only silence reveals. One of the hardest truths you'll ever accept is this: most people's opinions of you have nothing to do with you. Let that sink in. We spend years, decades, even imprisoned by invisible judgments that were never truly ours. You wear clothes to impress people you don't even respect. You stay silent when you should speak, afraid of what they might say. You chase approval like it's oxygen, forgetting that real strength can't breathe in borrowed air. But here's the brutal reality. Most of the people judging you are fighting battles you can't see. Their opinions are projections, mirrors reflecting their fears, insecurities, and limitations. The friend who questions your dreams has probably given up on their own. The colleague who mocks your ambition is terrified of being left behind. The family member who doubts your choices is trying to soothe the regret they carry. So when you take their words personally, you're not just giving away your peace, you're volunteering for their suffering. The Stoics knew this. Epictetus, once a slave, became one of history's greatest teachers of freedom. He taught that we suffer not from events themselves, but from our judgments about them. It's not the insult that wounds you. It's the belief that it means something about your worth. The Stoic warrior develops what I call opinion immunity. It's not arrogance, it's wisdom. It's the ability to distinguish between feedback that refines you and noise that drains you. Here's the test. When someone disapproves of you, pause and ask yourself 3 questions. Is this person living the kind of life I want to live? Are they speaking from love and wisdom, or from fear and envy? Will this opinion matter 5 years from now? If the answer to any of those is no, let it go. Because every second you spend defending yourself to someone who doesn't understand you, you're losing energy you could spend building something they never will. Marcus Aurelius said, "We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own." That's the insanity of modern life. We claim to value freedom, but live chained to what strangers think. But when you master opinion immunity, everything changes. You start living according to your values, not their expectations. You dress how you want. You create without asking for permission. You speak truth even if your voice shakes. And the irony, the more you stop chasing approval, the more genuine respect you attract. Because people can sense authenticity. They can feel when someone is unshakable, when your peace is not negotiable. But don't mistake this mindset for indifference. The Stoic warrior doesn't ignore everyone's opinions. They simply filter them through the lens of virtue. They listen to wise counsel, to mentors, to those who challenge them to grow. But the rest, the noise of gossip, envy, misunderstanding, is just static in the background. Think about this. If a person's approval could make you happy, their disapproval could destroy you. That's not love. That's dependence. True strength is when you can hear someone misunderstand you completely and feel no need to correct them. Not because you don't care, but because you've made peace with being misunderstood. In a world that profits from your insecurity, self-respect becomes rebellion. When you stop dancing to others' expectations, you become unpredictable and therefore powerful. So here's your practice this week. Do one thing you've hesitated to do because of what others might think. Speak your truth. Post your idea. Wear what makes you feel alive. Say no when your soul says no, even if it disappoints someone. Then observe what happens. The world won't collapse. The people who truly matter will still respect you, and the ones who don't, they were never meant to define you anyway. Remember, the Stoic warrior walks through the noise untouched, not because they're heartless, but because their heart belongs to something higher. Truth, others' opinions are weather, unpredictable, temporary, and outside your control. Your integrity is the sky, vast, unmoving, and always above the storm. When you live by that truth, their judgments can't touch you, because you've built your peace on ground they'll never reach. There's a difference between standing alone and being abandoned. Most people can't see it, because they've never learned how to depend on themselves. They think self-reliance means isolation, or selfishness, or pride. But the Stoic warrior understands something deeper. You can't truly serve others until you've learned to stand on your own 2 feet. We live in an age that romanticizes dependence. Find your other half. Lean on your tribe. You're only as strong as your support system. These ideas sound comforting, but if you look closer, they quietly teach weakness. They tell you your peace, your stability, your very identity depend on someone else's presence. And once you believe that, you've already surrendered your freedom. Epictetus warned about this long ago. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Dependence, no matter how beautifully disguised, is still a cage built from your own fears. The Stoic warrior refuses that cage. They know that self-reliance isn't selfishness. It's self-respect. It's not about rejecting others. It's about removing the illusion that others must rescue you. Think about the airplane rule. Put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. It's not arrogance. It's logic. If you can't breathe, you can't help. If you're constantly collapsing, who are you really saving? The same principle applies to life. You can't pour wisdom from an empty mind or love from a broken identity. Before you can lift anyone else, you have to build a foundation strong enough to carry both of you. So what does true self-reliance look like? It starts with emotional sovereignty, the ability to process your own feelings without outsourcing comfort every time you're uncomfortable. When something goes wrong, you don't rush to complain or collapse. You sit with it, you reflect, you ask, what part of this is within my control? That pause, that moment of responsibility, is power. It continues with practical competence. Learn the skills that keep you alive and stable. Cook your own meals, manage your money, maintain your body, plan your future. Each act of competence whispers the same truth. I can rely on me. And deeper still lies spiritual self-reliance. Stop outsourcing your meaning. Stop waiting for someone else to tell you what's right or what matters. Read the ancient texts, meditate, question everything, even your beliefs. The Stoic warrior doesn't follow blindly. They test truth through experience and reason. This doesn't mean you isolate yourself from humanity. It means you enter every connection from a place of strength, not need. You don't seek relationships to fill your emptiness. You bring wholeness into them. That's why the self-reliant person often gives more, because they give freely, not out of fear of being alone. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "Nothing can bring you peace but the triumph of principles." That's the heart of self-reliance, aligning your life with principles so steady that even if the whole world collapses, you still know who you are. Ask yourself this. If everyone you depended on disappeared tomorrow, would you still recognize the person in the mirror? Would you still feel grounded? Or would you crumble? That answer tells you how free you really are. The Stoic warrior chooses to build independence before the world forces it upon them. They practice solitude before it's required. They master calm before the storm rives. Because when the inevitable comes, loss, betrayal, change, they don't break, they bend. And bending is strength. Start small. Identify one area where you're overly dependent. Maybe emotional reassurance, financial support, or constant approval. Then take one deliberate step toward independence in that area. Don't announce it. Don't seek applause. Just act quietly, consistently, until your confidence no longer needs confirmation. And remember this paradox: the more self-reliant you become, the more connected you can be. Because real relationships thrive between equals, not dependence. The person who can stand alone can also stand beside others with clarity, not fear. That's why the Stoic warrior values independence above comfort. Because dependence may feel warm, but it keeps you small. Self-reliance may feel cold, but it forges iron. So stand tall, even when it feels unfamiliar. Walk alone, even when the path is narrow. Because the moment you stop waiting to be saved is the moment you realize you already were. Everyone loves the idea of success, but very few are willing to pay its tuition. And that tuition is failure. We've been taught to fear failure as if it were a verdict, a permanent stain on our worth. But the Stoic warrior knows better. Failure isn't a wall. It's a doorway, one that only opens for those who dare to walk through pain consciously. Thomas Edison, when asked about his 1,000 failed attempts to create the light bulb, said, "I didn't fail 1,000 times. I found 1,000 ways that didn't work." That's not optimism. That's mastery. It's the mindset of someone who has learned to study failure instead of running from it. The truth is, failure hurts. It burns, it humbles. But that pain is sacred because it reveals what comfort hides. When everything's going well, your weaknesses stay invisible. But when you fail, the mask slips and your true foundation is exposed. That's where the Stoic warrior begins their education. While others seek distraction or pity after a setback, the Stoic sits with the wreckage and asks one question: what is this trying to teach me? Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Every obstacle, every defeat, every rejection, they aren't detours. They're the path itself." So here's how the Stoic warrior studies failure. Through a practice I call the failure audit. After every significant setback, take time alone. No phone, no excuses, no noise. Write down 3 questions. What did I control that I could have done differently? What was outside my control that I need to accept? What can I learn that will make me stronger next time? That's it. 3 questions that turn pain into progress. Most people never do this. They rush to blame others or themselves, drowning in guilt or denial. But guilt doesn't build wisdom. Reflection does. The goal isn't self-punishment. It's self-education. Failure reveals patterns, and patterns reveal truth. Maybe you overcome it. Maybe you fear confrontation until it's too late. Maybe you chase perfection instead of progress. Each mistake is feedback from life itself, a private lecture designed just for you. And the irony: the more you're willing to fail, the less likely you are to repeat it. Because every time you process a failure honestly, you grow stronger, sharper, less fragile. You become what the Stoics called anti-fragile, someone who benefits from stress instead of breaking under it. Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." That's why comfort is so dangerous. It polishes nothing. It hides your dull edges and tells you you're fine when you're not. But the Stoic warrior doesn't wait for a failure to destroy them. They invite it to refine them. They see defeat as curriculum, not catastrophe. Every scar becomes a note in the textbook of their own becoming. And when you start viewing failure this way, everything shifts. You stop seeing rejection as humiliation. You see it as redirection. You stop fearing mistakes. You see them as mirrors reflecting the next step forward. You realize that every downfall is a test of your capacity to rise. Still, this mindset takes courage, because it means you can no longer hide behind excuses. You can no longer blame fate, or luck, or timing. You must face the truth. Sometimes you lost because you weren't ready. And that's okay, because readiness isn't a gift. It's built in the ruins of your last defeat. So next time you fail, resist the urge to run. Don't call it the end. Don't dramatize it. Sit with it, study it. Failure is like fire. Uncontrolled, it destroys. Controlled, it purifies. That's what makes the Stoic warrior different. While others crumble in shame, you rise in wisdom. You don't chase an easy life. You chase a meaningful one. Every time you fail, write this down. This is my private lesson in becoming unstoppable. Because the only real failure is refusing to learn. Everything else, every mistake, every rejection, every broken plan, is simply tuition in the University of Strength. And if you keep showing up, keep studying, keep refining, you'll graduate into something most people never reach. A version of yourself that doesn't fear falling anymore, because you've learned how to rise. There comes a point in every warrior's life when they realize the real battlefield is within. Up until now, you fought to master solitude, silence, and failure. But even after all that, storms will still come. People will misunderstand you. Plans will collapse. Loss will strike without warning. And when it does, your only true defense is what you've built inside. That's why the Stoics spoke of the inner citadel, an unshakable fortress of mind and spirit that no insult, no disaster, no betrayal can ever breach. Epictetus said, "No one can harm you without your permission," and he wasn't exaggerating. You can be hurt physically, yes, but your peace, your integrity, your clarity, those belong only to you. The tragedy is that most people never build their fortress. They walk through life emotionally exposed, wide open to every opinion, every mood, every shift of circumstance. A single rude comment ruins their day. A temporary setback shatters their purpose. They've given the keys of their peace to anyone willing to take them. The Stoic warrior refuses to live like that. They build inner walls, not to keep people out, but to keep their power in. Let's break this down. Your fortress has 3 layers of defense. The outer wall is perspective. It's the ability to zoom out, to see your current problem in the context of a much larger picture. When someone insults you, perspective reminds you their words reveal their character, not yours. When you fail, perspective whispers, "This too shall pass." When life feels unfair, perspective shows you it's not personal, it's universal. The second wall is principles. These are the values you live by, the code that defines your behavior even when the world tests you. You don't react, you respond, guided by clarity instead of emotion. When others compromise to be liked, you stay rooted in integrity. When others chase comfort, you stay loyal to discipline. Principles are what give structure to your soul, and the innermost keep, the heart of the fortress, is identity. Not the roles you play, not your titles or possessions, but the awareness behind them. You are not your success or your failure, not your wealth or your reputation. You are the consciousness that observes all of it, unbroken, untouched, unbothered. That's the part of you no one can reach unless you hand them the keys. The Stoic warrior strengthens this fortress daily. Each morning, they practice awareness, noticing thoughts as they rise, choosing which ones to keep and which to release. Each challenge becomes a training ground, a chance to practice calm under pressure. Every act of restraint, every moment of forgiveness, every deep breath in chaos, another brick laid in the wall. Because the truth is, life will test the strength of your fortress again and again. Loss will come, pain will come, but those who've built properly don't collapse. They bend, they endure, they stand tall while others crumble. And something beautiful happens when your inner fortress becomes strong. You can finally open its gates. You can engage with the world fully, freely, without losing yourself. You can love without attachment, serve without resentment, give without expectation, because your peace no longer depends on their response. When your foundation is steady, you stop fearing storms. You start welcoming them. Each one becomes proof of how solid you become. Marcus Aurelius called this the strength of the ruling faculty, that divine spark of reason that no chaos can extinguish. When you live from that center, you stop being reactive. You become still, not because you don't care, but because you finally understand what deserves your energy. Here's your practice. Identify one area where your peace depends too much on external things, a person, an outcome, an image. Ask yourself, what happens if I lose this tomorrow? Would I still know who I am? Then, slowly, begin reclaiming that power. Detach not by indifference, but by understanding. You can appreciate without clinging, participate without losing yourself. Your fortress isn't meant to isolate you from life. It's meant to anchor you in it. When the storm hits, the untrained scream, "Why me?" The Stoic warrior simply whispers, "Test me." Because every storm that doesn't break you strengthens the walls, and over time, those walls stop being barriers. They become temples. Temples of peace, integrity, and unshakable purpose. That's the power of the inner fortress. You don't build it to escape life. You build it so that, no matter what life brings, you remain unshaken. There is a quiet kind of courage most people never learn. The courage to disappoint others in order to remain true to yourself. We live in a world that worships approval. From childhood, we're trained to please parents, teachers, friends, bosses. We learn that acceptance equals safety and rejection equals danger. So we say yes when our heart screams no. We smile when we're exhausted. We bend until our spine forgets how to stand straight. But every time you betray your own truth to keep someone else comfortable, you build a cage inside yourself. A golden cage, maybe, but still a cage. The Stoic warrior refuses that prison. They understand that trying to please everyone is not compassion, it's cowardice. Because when you spend your life avoiding others' disappointment, you guarantee one person's disappointment every single day. Your own. Aristotle said, to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing. That's the path of comfort and mediocrity. The Stoic warrior chooses a harder way. To live so authentically that misunderstanding becomes inevitable. You see, people will always project their expectations onto you. They'll tell you how to live, how to work, how to love, how to change. And when you don't fit into their image of you, they'll call it rebellion. But it isn't rebellion. It's honesty. This is where real courage begins. Not in battle, not in noise, but in the quiet moment when you choose to honor your truth over their approval. Disappointing others doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care enough to live honestly. Because the truth is, people may not like your choices now, but they'll respect your integrity later. Here's what most people don't understand. Every boundary you set will disappoint someone who benefits from your lack of boundaries. Every dream you pursue will unsettle someone who gave up on theirs. Every version of yourself you grow into will make someone uncomfortable with the version they still are. That's not your burden to carry. The Stoic warrior practices strategic disappointment The conscious choice to let down the wrong people so you can lift up the right. Purpose. This doesn't mean being cruel. You can disappoint with kindness. You can say no with grace. You can honor others' feelings without betraying your values. The key is intention. Are you acting from fear or from truth? When fear drives you, you conform. When truth drives you, you transform. Here's a paradox few can accept. When you stop living to impress others, you finally become impressive. Because authenticity shines brighter than approval ever could. It's rare, it's real, it's magnetic. So, how do you cultivate this courage? Start small. Say no to something meaningless before life forces you to say no to something that matters. Speak your mind once a day, even if your voice shakes. Stand by a decision without defending it. And when guilt creeps in, remember this: discomfort is temporary, but self-betrayal is permanent. The Stoic warrior also chooses their battles wisely. Not every disagreement needs to become a war. You can be firm without being rigid. You can stand tall without standing alone. The goal isn't to defy everyone. It's to align with what's right. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Simple, direct, uncompromising, and yet, how many of us dare to live that way? Remember, disappointing others is sometimes the highest form of respect, because it means you trust them to handle the truth. People who truly love you may feel hurt for a while, but deep down, they'll prefer your honesty over your obedience, because obedience breeds resentment. Truth builds trust. So here's your reflection. Who are you still trying to impress? Whose opinion still dictates your peace? And what part of you has been silenced to keep them comfortable? You don't owe anyone the version of yourself that keeps you small. The world doesn't need more agreeable people. It needs more authentic ones. Say no with peace. Disappoint with dignity. Walk away without hatred. Because the day you choose to honor your values, you lose the illusion of being liked and gain the reality of being respected. The Stoic warrior knows this truth deeply. A life spent avoiding all disappointment is a life that ends in the greatest disappointment of all, the disappointment of never becoming who you truly are. Every warrior seeks victory, but most chase it in the wrong direction. They fight to conquer others, to win arguments, collect trophies, gain recognition. They spend their lives chasing validation dressed as victory. And when they finally get what they wanted, they discover something hollow. The battle outside was never the real one. The Stoic warrior knows this truth. The only victory that truly matters is victory over yourself. Lao Tzu wrote, "He who conquers others is strong. He who conquers himself is mighty." And that single line contains the secret to lasting peace. Self-mastery isn't about suppressing your emotions or pretending not to care. It's about becoming the conscious director of your mind instead of its slave. It's about learning to observe your impulses without obeying them, to feel anger without being consumed by it, to experience fear without letting it dictate your choices. That's what the Stoics call the ruling faculty. The ability to choose your response no matter what happens. Every day gives you dozens of chances to practice it. When someone insults you, do you react or respond? When plans fail, do you panic or adapt? When temptation whispers, do you surrender or stay aligned? These may seem like small choices, but together they shape your destiny. Because each time you choose your response consciously, you tighten your grip on your own reins. Each victory over impulse is another stone laid in the path toward freedom. Self-mastery begins with awareness. You can't control what you don't observe. So the Stoic warrior watches their mind the way a general watches the battlefield. They study the patterns. When anger rises, what triggers fear? When ego interferes, they know that every reaction unexamined becomes a chain. Every emotion understood becomes a tool. From that awareness comes discipline. Not the kind built on guilt, but the kind born of respect, the understanding that your time, your energy, your focus are sacred resources. You don't waste them on arguments, gossip, or comparison. You protect them like a warrior guards his sword. And here's the paradox. The more control you gain over yourself, the less you need to control others. Because once you master your inner world, the outer one loses its power over you. This is freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to want only what's right. Self-mastery also transforms your relationship with desire. The Stoics never said to kill desire. They said to discipline it, to distinguish between preference and attachment, to want things, but not need them, to enjoy success without being enslaved by it. That's why the Stoic warrior can walk away, not because they don't care, but because they refuse to let anything own them. When you master yourself, even loss becomes manageable. When you don't depend on outcomes for a peace, you can engage with life fully, without fear of defeat. Imagine this, a man who wins every argument but loses his temper. Has he really won? A person who gains fortune but loses integrity. Has she truly succeeded? A leader who commands nations but cannot govern his thoughts. Has he conquered anything at all? External victories mean nothing if they cost you your soul. The Stoic warrior's victory is quieter, but infinitely more powerful. It's the victory of calm in chaos, of peace in pain, of clarity in confusion. It's the ability to meet every moment, joy or tragedy, with the same steady gaze and say, "This too is under my control." Self-mastery isn't a destination. It's a lifelong discipline. You will never be perfect, but that's not the goal. The goal is progress. To be a little less reactive today than you were yesterday. A little more patient. A little more aware. Because when you own your reactions, you own your reality. Start small. Notice one recurring pattern in your day. Impatience, envy, distraction. Catch it the moment it appears. Don't fight it. Observe it. Ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to tell me? Then respond with intention instead of impulse. That's one small victory. Do it again tomorrow and the next day. That's how warriors are made. Not in sudden triumphs, but in silent repetitions. When you reach this point, something profound happens. You walk alone, not because you must, but because you can. You rise alone, not from pride, but from peace. You win alone, not out of isolation, but out of mastery. This is the final paradox of the Stoic path. You spend your life learning to control yourself, only to realize that self-control is not confinement. It's liberation, because once you master yourself, the world can no longer enslave you. You've walked through every battlefield of the inner world, and now, as the dust settles, one truth stands tall above all the rest. The world doesn't need more followers. It needs warriors of the mind. Let's look back, not just to remember, but to integrate. Because wisdom means nothing unless it becomes part of who you are. The Stoic warrior's path began with solitude, the sacred silence where you met yourself for the first time. You learned that being alone isn't punishment. It's preparation, that the quiet isn't empty. It's full of answers waiting for you to listen. Then came the second truth. Your opinion of me is none of my business. You stopped living for the applause. You stopped bending under the weight of others' expectations. You discovered that peace doesn't come from being understood. It comes from understanding yourself. The third principle was self-reliance. You took back your power. You stopped outsourcing your stability, your happiness, your sense of worth. You began to stand, not because someone told you to, but because you realized you could. Then came failure, your private university. You learned that pain was not the enemy, it was the teacher. That every mistake carried a message, that reflection, not regret, was the path to wisdom. From there, you built the inner fortress, a citadel of calm and reason that no insult, no chaos, no loss can penetrate. You stopped trying to control the weather and learned instead to strengthen the walls. Then you faced your greatest social test, the courage to disappoint others. You learned that living authentically will cost you approval, but that peace built on pretending isn't peace at all. You began to say no without anger, to stand your ground without apology. And finally, you arrived at the ultimate battle, victory through self-mastery. You realized that the war outside means nothing if you lose the one within. You discovered the power to choose your response, to guide your mind, to live with intention. You understood that freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's wanting only what is right. Now you see it clearly. These aren't 7 separate lessons. They're one continuous evolution of strength. Solitude teaches you to know yourself. Self-reliance teaches you to trust yourself. Self-mastery teaches you to lead yourself. And when you reach that level of inner command, something changes. You no longer chase validation. You radiate conviction. You no longer react to life. You respond to it. You no longer fear walking alone, because you've realized you never truly are. Marcus Aurelius said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself." That wasn't poetry. It was a command. A reminder that every answer you've been seeking has always been inside you. So, as we close this journey, remember what you've built. You've turned solitude into a sanctuary. You've turned pain into wisdom. You've turned disappointment into strength. You've turned self-control into freedom. You've become the kind of person who can walk through fire without losing composure, because your peace no longer depends on the temperature of the world around you. That's what it means to walk alone. That's what it means to rise alone. That's what it means to win alone. Not in arrogance, but in awareness. Not in isolation, but in inner alignment. Not against others, but above the chaos. Because when you win the war within, the world outside becomes a reflection of your strength. The Stoic warrior doesn't seek to escape life. He seeks to embody it fully, without fear, without pretense, without attachment. And the moment you step into that level of presence, you become untouchable, not because the world stops testing you, but because your soul stops trembling. So if this journey has resonated with you, if you felt even a spark of recognition in these words, then remember this: you already have everything you need. You've always had it. You just needed the silence to hear it. If this message spoke to you, if you're ready to keep walking the Stoic path, then take one simple step, like this video. Share it with someone who needs to remember their own strength, and subscribe to this channel, StoicCraft, where ancient philosophy meets the modern world, where we don't just talk about Stoicism, we live it. Tell me in the comments, which of the 7 principles spoke to you the most? Because every reflection you share might be the reason someone else keeps going. Your journey to inner mastery starts and continues right here. Walk alone, rise alone, win alone. And remember, that path, though quiet, is the path to freedom.